Welcome to the Rutherford County G.O.P podcast. We're having another mayor roundtable discussion today, and I've got special guest Shane McFarland with us. Shane, thanks for joining us today. It's great to have you. You've been mayor here in Murfreesboro since what? When did you become mayor? 2014?
2014. Yeah,
Wow.
I was on the council. Started on the council in 2006. So it's
Wow.
I joke and say it's been. I had a lot more hair back then and a few less pounds than I have now. So
I think we could all say that.
Yeah, that's
Agree with
right.
that.
Yeah.
That's good. So tell us a little bit about who Shane McFarland is. So we know you as mayor, and we've seen you go through the COVID stuff and all the different challenges that you've had over the years, and you've really done a fantastic job with a lot of those things. But how do we get to that point? I know you're a graduate of MTSU. Tell us a little bit of background on who Shane McFarland is.
Yeah, so I'm from Grundy County. I went to Grundy County High School, real rural and poor county. I mean, a lot like Matt from the same background, but my mom and dad still lived there. Mom was a special ed teacher. She was basically an EA, education assistant. Dad taught auto mechanics at Grundy County High School, drove a coal truck, got a job as a bank teller, and ended up progressing up through the banking world. But neither one of my parents went to college. So Sean and I, my twin brother, we were the first people in our family to ever go to college. So we came to Murfreesboro and ended up coming here in '92 and then never left. Loved Murfreesboro. I got involved in the Murfreesboro community. Met my wife here in '98. Ashley was born and raised in Murfreesboro. She went to University of Tennessee. So I met her in between. She had come back to Murfreesboro she was going to grad school at Vanderbilt. She's a nurse practitioner. And we've been married. Our anniversary is actually August 7th, so tomorrow. And we'll be married 26 years.
Congratulations.
Have 3 boys. Luke and Eli are twins. So I'm a twin that had a twin. And they're juniors.
It's supposed to skip a generation. It didn't do that for you guys.
It landed all over on us. And what's cool with Luke and Eli, they have different birthdays. Eli was born January 24th at 10:20, and Luke was born 1:17, 3 hours later, on January 25th. So it's really cool. You know, Sean and I my birthday was yesterday. Sean and I share a birthday, and Luke and Eli don't, which is cool because they get their own day, you know. So they're juniors at University of Tennessee, very active up there. And then Drew is 12, and Drew's birthday is 2 weeks from now. He'll be 13. And man, it's like God brings the perfect timing. Ashley and I, we have like our deep talks when we walk every day. And we were talking about what it would be like if Drew were not here and that we were truly empty nesters. And so, man, he is such a blessing. He's the life of our family. I mean, as far as like he's kept everybody together, even when the boys were, getting ready to leave. So So
Drew's living his best life. His brothers are out of the house. He's kind of an only child now.
Yeah, he is an only child. And what's funny, they don't call each other Luke and Eli or Drew. They call each other brothers. So Drew, and it's so cool because Drew will be like, "Hey, are the brothers coming home?" Or, "Where are the brothers?" I mean, he never really says Luke and Eli, just calls them the brothers. But yeah, we've gotten, I joke and say that Drew has gotten, it's a lot like politics. Drew's gotten the best of us from a wisdom standpoint. He's probably gotten the worst of us from a physical standpoint. Like, 15 years ago, I'm out in the yard every single night with the boys doing something, not like that as much with Drew, but he's definitely gotten the spoils of being able to learn what's been good and what's been bad, what we messed up when we raised the boys. So I've got a great family.
I think that's the benefit of being not being the firstborn.
Yeah,
you kind of get a little bit. Parents get a little bit more experience after that first one. Each one you get. And then you probably get a little bit easier on them as they.
Oh man! Well, like Drew and I, we were week before last. He plays baseball and good little baseball player, but you learn so much from team sports. But we got to go to Cooperstown, and he played in the Dream Park tournament up there for a week, and so it's just like things that just we didn't do that with the boys. So we just learned, and Drew will laugh. He'll be like, "Hey, Dad, I'm the favorite, right?" And I'm like, No, Drew, I love you all the same. But
That's good.
It's a good spot right now.
That's awesome. So you started on council in 2006. Tell us a little bit about that, because you had your own business, I believe, at that time.
No.
No, you had not started.
No,
Okay.
I had not. Yeah.
Tell us your idea in 2006 to decide you wanted to run for city council.
Yes, I served on the planning commission and started there in early 2000s. And you learn so much from the planning commission, and you learn about what's happening, what's going on. More importantly, you just learn road structures, all those different things. So I served, I think it was about 4 or 5 years. My boys were born in 2004, and I remember being on planning commission, and they showed the pictures of the boys on the TV whenever they were born. So
Wow.
my boys I've always been involved with the city since they've been born, but that was just a natural transition to go from that planning commission standpoint to council. And so I came on council 2006, very young. And I look back, and even going back to when I was elected mayor in 2014, and I just shake my head at some of the things that I didn't have weight in my vocabulary, really aggressive on, like us, that, we're in small business. You don't want to have a committee to form a committee to talk about what the committee needs to talk about. You just want to solve problems. And so I've learned that more importantly, we've got good folks who work at the City of Murfreesboro. We've got a good team, and you've really started to see that migrate now that the years of being on council in 2006. You've gone through so many people at the city that have left over the last 20 plus years. So I've learned a lot, and still learn something new every day.
Well, that's really cool that your boys have been able to see you serve in the community the way you have, and I'm sure they've learned a lot of lessons from that. And correct me if I'm wrong, you actually served while you were at MTSU as well, didn't you?
I was the student body president at MTSU in 95, 96.
Wow.
It was actually during the time that MTSU decided that they were going Division 1A in football. So I learned quite a bit. Mark Burns, who you know as well, Mark is the provost at MTSU. Mark was there at the time. I mean, some of my best relationships I've met through this city. I mean, and I think that's the thing that we talk about, the growth that the community's had, that, a lot of us are not from here. When I moved to Murfreesboro, I want to say the population in 92 was in the mid 30,000s.
Yeah.
And, there's what you see typically is, and I think that's something that MTSU's lacking a little bit right now, that I hope we're able to get back, is you look at the amount of people who came to school here and they stayed here because they loved the city and wanted to contribute to the community. And I mean, you can go through and just name person after person who moved here and affiliated with MTSU. So that MTSU changed the trajectory of my entire family.
Absolutely.
If people said hands down, what's the one organization and thing that changed your life, the decision to come to MTSU has been a huge decision in my family's life.
Yeah. Well, I've had a few leadership roles over the years, and when people say it can be really lonely being at the top, I've certainly experienced that in my life. Has that been something you've seen as far as just being mayor and kind of the one that everybody points to when everything goes wrong, but nobody ever wants to pat you on the back when things go right? How do you deal with those situations like that? Because I know emotionally that can become taxing after a while.
Yeah, I mean, one, your faith.
Sure.
I mean, you have to believe that God put you in the position that you're supposed to be there. I mean, Alan Jackson has been instrumental. I don't get to talk to Alan near as much as I used to, but Alan, just his advice when I first started as mayor, and being able to, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. And I also say, as a leader, you can't ever feel like you're always the smartest person in the room, that you have to be able to listen and understand that the people you surrounded yourself with are good at what they do. But yeah, I mean, looking back, we had that rally that came in 2017, and that was a very lonely position that people, as much as we disagreed with what that group was saying, they have a constitutional right to say
Free
that.
speech.
And so I think we try to set the example to say that's not who we are. That's not who we are as a community. And then, a lot of people question. Sean Hackinson, one of my good buddies, sent me a text after that was over with and said, "I want to apologize. I publicly criticized why were we allowing this group to come, and you stood firm on why and how we were going to handle it. And now, Murfreesboro, that situation, we're a model for the community, for the country on how we handled that." So, but I don't think there's.
So backing up for just a second. So for folks that maybe are newer to town that aren't familiar with that was a group of protesters that were racially motivated.
Yes.
And we essentially had to board up downtown for this giant protest, and both sides were present. On kind of both ends of the topic. Why don't you describe it? You can probably do a better job.
So that was right after Charlottesville, Virginia.
Yep.
Everybody was on very high alert. We had this group that said that they wanted to come down, and it was like I think it was called a White Lives Rally or something. But a very tense environment. The downtown area, like where we're sitting right now, you've got small businesses who are down here, and we had to protect our downtown, and so then you couple that with, Antifa showed up, and all in masks, and so it was an extremely tense environment. But we had good leadership between the county, the city, Sheriff Fitzhugh. We worked together. Mayor Burgess was the mayor at the time, and we had a lot of state help. But and so that ended up going well. The group ended up barely even showing up. We had more trouble with Antifa than we did any group, but it went off, no problem.
Yeah.
But then you had another group that wanted to do the counter protest, and the counter protest was at Barfield Park. And then you had that group that was doing the counter protest, and then you had other groups that were wanting to go out there. So it was just it was a tense moment.
Yeah.
But then, you had the other group when back in 2019, 2020, when some of the racial violence was happening or racial issues were happening across the country, then that came to Murfreesboro. So we had another one of those that people marched down to the police department. And I was so proud of our police officers. They're standing in front of the police department, and you've got these groups who are yelling the worst things possible to, so we're talking about racial inequality, and you've got police officers lined up that are brown, black, white, men, women, and man, they're getting called everything in the under the sun, and these Murfreesboro police officers just stood there. So that's one of the things, if I said I'm most proud about, is where we have come with, police officer pay, our public safety pay, fire department, dispatchers, and all of that was sort of a culmination of what we learned going through those different environments. And you asked the question, that's the biggest difference between being a council member and a mayor, is as a council member, I was able to sort of see both sides, and you could ride sort of a fence post, right?
Sure, yeah.
And as mayor, you don't get to do that. And that makes it really tough, because I probably get more credit for things that go right and more blame for things that go wrong. And I think that's what, as a leader, we try to do is, be slow to take credit and quick to take blame. And there are things that went on with those rallies that, I didn't really have a say in, but I think that's the part of a good leader, is making sure that you protect your people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one thing to say you've got good leaders around you and you surround yourself with good people and you've got good relationships at MTSU, but when something like that goes down, it really tests how good are your folks. And in Murfreesboro really became the ideal case study for how you manage those things. And I think you're exactly right. Had you not had those right folks in those positions in law enforcement and in MTSU, I think having a university like MTSU in our backyard, it draws a lot of those things into our community that maybe other communities aren't having to be faced with in Middle Tennessee. And so,
I agree. As long as you have the support, and I think that's, you've heard this at church, major on the major and minor on the minor.
Sure.
And, our major on the major was making sure that our people, the property were protected. I'm not worried about someone calling me asking, hey, can you take down these banners because we don't want that to be in the news. I mean, that's not what we're focused on. And so we've been blessed that we've got people who really want what's the best for Murfreesboro around. We still have our challenges, but part of that goes into your faith and your family and all the people that you've surrounded yourself with.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we've been faced with a lot of different things COVID is another one that, nobody really wrote a script on how you manage that. And that's another one that, tell us about how you went through that process of making decisions when really you didn't have anything to turn back to and look at as a best case, how you managed through something like that.
Well, it was really, a lot of people didn't understand from the city perspective that we were so much different than Metro Davidson, because it really boiled down to, you have 95 counties, and out of those 95 counties, I think it's 90 have county health departments. There are 5 that don't, and one being Nashville. And so Nashville was sort of over to the side, and they can make their own rules because they weren't governed by the state health department. Rutherford County, we were. And so all the decisions that we were getting that were being mandated to us came from the state level, which then came from the federal level. So the city had very little ability to do anything. And I mean, I think looking back, Mayor Ketchern was the mayor at the time, and Bill did a good job. I mean, the amount of information that we were getting on a daily basis that was contradictory made no sense. And so what we tried to do was really educate. We did videos. Paul Patel came, and we did a thing from City Hall trying to educate and talk about people. But I mean, I hate to say this, man, is like, going through the last election cycle, I mean, a lot of it was just crap. I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, because now looking back and seeing the data that's coming across and the amount of misinformation that was being pushed down to the local levels, it really makes you mad. Because, the things now that you see of how we affected small businesses. And I think the big thing now, and I think the thing that we're really going to look back and regret, what was done to the schools during that time period. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, but you cannot argue that what happened during COVID is not going to have long-term effects on the education system and those kids who went through basically 18 months of not being in school.
Right.
And that was the thing with the City of Murfreesboro. I mean, we had like 37 sites that we fed kids every single day while school was out. Because you have to think about this, and again, this is not a political side. I mean, we have kids in our school system that the only meal they get every day, 2 meals, they get breakfast and lunch. And so when COVID was going on, those kids don't get food. And so that was something that we really were working through, and all the things behind the scene. But I mean, the amount of lessons that we learned, in my opinion, during COVID have been, it was eye-opening seeing all of it.
Yeah, well, I think you've done a good job too, Shane, in being transparent and having opportunities to be able to hear from the community. I think you just recently had a community meeting in the last few days.
It was a tough crowd.
Yeah, and I think those things really are great, because you get to hear from the general public, and maybe you hear things that you think about things in the way that you're not typically thinking about them. But what is it that's caused you? Because I feel like that's something you've done here in the last 5 or 6 years, where you've really gotten big on community engagement. Has there been something that's kind of triggered that, or has that just been experience?
Experience is part of it, but I try to set the example too with our council members, and we've got a great group of council members that, like, look, if you don't want to respond to emails, return phone calls, there's so much social media stuff now that I got 3 or 4 messages this morning that you try to respond to. Then, I mean, you don't need to be in public service. And so what I've tried to do is find better ways of engaging. And I do that with the Facebook Lives and with these town halls that council all come to. But and try to do that with some sense of humor and maybe a little bit of sarcasm here and there. I mean, I think
You've got to have a sense of humor, because I've seen the comment section.
Yeah,
if you don't have a sense of humor,
yeah.
you
my rule on my Facebook Lives, and routinely, I think the last one I did, there was 50,000 engagements on
Wow.
that. I'm like, hey, I'll answer any question as long as it's not derogatory or dirty. I mean, I think that I hope people, whether you voted for me or didn't vote for me, you appreciate that we're trying to reach out. And that's the other part too, Ross. Like doing this podcast, you have to find better ways of engaging people. And the old guard of just sitting around or reading the newspaper, that it just doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
So I've tried to be able to engage, and sometimes it works out well, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't work out well, but there are snippets, like when we were dealing with some of the things we dealt with a couple of years ago when we were talking about drag shows in Murfreesboro. And I mean, I don't think it's appropriate that a middle-aged person dressed up is around children, especially if they were to put their hands on a child. I mean, that just seems common sense to me. So I made some of those comments on my Facebook Live, and it allowed people to be able to like clip those out, and take clips out of context. But,
sure.
I think that's part of, like, I think you just tell people how you feel and try to engage people to talk about those things.
Well, and it seems like the more of those that you have, the less ability it takes for somebody to take a snippet out of something out of context, because people really get to know who you are when you're doing these all the time, and they know your heart. And it seems like there's always that small percentage of people that just want to create chaos. But the majority of people, they want to sit down and come to solutions. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, or lack of information. And I think when you do that, it really opens the door for people to be able to just be heard.
Yeah.
And to be informed of, actually what I thought to be truth is really not the case. And, I think our growth is one of those things that, how do we manage that in a way, when it takes you a lot longer to get across town than maybe it did 10 or 15 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago, and how we manage that is so important. What's your thoughts about our growth in our community? How do we manage that? I mean, as a suburb of Nashville, people are not going to quit moving to Middle Tennessee. How do we manage that in a healthy way that doesn't diminish quality of life?
Yeah, and I think that's the $1 million question, that, what you see. And I don't say this to be flippant, but like, I moved here in 92, you moved here at some point, and what you see is that someone moves here, they really like it, but they don't want anybody else to move here, and we're talking about affordability, we're talking about homelessness, all those things go to growth. But, I put a poll out, or not, I don't want to say a poll, I did a response. I think, good Lord, man, it was like 100 and some odd thousand people were engaged in that. So many comments, I couldn't respond to all of them. But I just asked, like, hey, there are 3 things that can help with growth. 1 is more density. 2 is, do you want more apartments? And then 3, do you want governmental intervention? And I mean, I have my opinion on those. I think we have to have a mix of density. I think we have to be able to have mixed use. And I mean, it's a supply and demand. If your supply is low and your demand's high, then your price point is much higher. Apartment is a dirty word in Murfreesboro now. People don't, or get really offended on apartments. So that's a different discussion. And then 3, do you want governmental intervention? And I mean, I think it's a resounding no. We don't want the government manipulating the housing market. I think the government, where our role is to be able to put things in place like we've done with our HEROES program, where, if a developer develops a subdivision and they set aside a specific amount of affordable housing for police officers, firefighters, teachers, those people who are serving, and nurses, who are serving in our community. So I think it's a mix with growth. But I mean, I think anyone who says that you want to shut it down, and I was talking with this lady who, she's posted a lot of things on social media, and her heart, I think, is in a good place. But she's like, Shane, why do y'all not get the roads done before the growth comes? And I was explaining to her, I just said, hey, you realize the majority of the roads you're talking about are all state roads. The state does not widen roads in anticipation of growth coming. They see where there's a need that the roads are being heavily traveled and then they widen the roads. So I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but here's the honest answer.
It's not always the fast way to get it done, though, right?
So here's the honest answer, though. You know, you know this from the line of work you're in, and I use this as an example. Like when y'all built Trader Joe's, you know, it took a long time to recruit Trader Joe's to come. Mm-hmm. All the infrastructure that's around Trader Joe's is paid for by the private sector. So if we went through and we said that the taxpayer was going to be paying for all of that infrastructure, our tax rate would be so high that you couldn't even afford to live here. So it has to be a balance of private sector paying for growth and then the public sector paying for growth. And that's the part that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, we've had one tax increase in almost 30 years. And I mean, I'm not bragging about that, but I mean, it is so much more expensive for everything in our city to build roads. I mean, we've given historic police and fire raises over the last 10 years, and we've done all that without raising taxes, and that's extremely hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Things have gotten a lot more expensive over the last 30 years. Talking about Trader Joe's, I mean, that's a deal that, you know, we probably spent 2 years working on it, and we never would have gotten that done had it not been for your help. You know, you came in and the city staff came in and helped get that done, and we would still be sitting here without Trader Joe's if you hadn't have jumped in. So we greatly appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I think one of the things, you're right, the impact fee situation is something I know the county has been looking at, impact fees for new development. And I'm a developer that believes that development should help pay for itself. We shouldn't put that burden back on our residents. But I also feel like, and I think that you feel the same way, by implementing an impact fee is allowing development to help cover the cost and to spur some of the specifically road improvements that are able to get some of that stuff moving and maybe make things better with the development than they would be without the development. Yeah. And I think that I've seen that in surrounding communities. Williamson County does that with some of their road impact fees, and I see you're now doing that here. And I think it's a great way to solve problems and be able to also manage the population growth. So I applaud you for doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the number one issue I think we have, taking the growth side out, the number one issue that people get really frustrated about is traffic. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's if you were to ask 10 out of 10 people taking public safety, because I say this, if you don't want someone who's going to support public safety, police officers, firefighters, dispatchers, don't vote for me. Because I think when other areas in the country were saying, hey, we're going to defund the police, we said we're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to fund the police, and we want to get the best and the brightest here. Because, I mean, I think that's the front door to our community, that you can fuss about traffic or growth, but if you do not feel safe in your community, that trumps everything.
Absolutely.
And so the traffic issue that we're dealing with, I mean, I'll throw it back to you. Name one growing city in Tennessee, one, that does not have a traffic issue.
There's not one.
I mean, Knoxville, Smyrna. I mean, use Smyrna, drive Sam Ridley Parkway, Chattanooga, Nashville, Clarksville. I mean, so I just think that it's not the answer that everyone wants to hear. But, you know, I go to Monteagle and see my mom and dad, and there is no traffic issue in Monteagle, but there's also no industry or job opportunities. I mean, all those people end up driving this way. So I think it's just something that we have to deal with. Like, I drive the roads every single day, and there are specific times during the day that our traffic stinks. I mean, you know, like Memorial from about 4 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, it's tough. But like this morning at 10 o'clock as I'm driving here, I had no trouble. So I think it's just something that we have to manage our expectations about what we can expect at certain periods of the day and what we can expect. But like, look, Drew plays baseball out at Barfield, and driving from the north side of Murfreesboro to all the way out to Barfield, you know, it's 8 miles that takes 35 minutes. I mean, 40 minutes.
You and Drew have a lot more quality time these days.
Yeah, we do. We get to spend a lot of time. So what we're trying to do, and whether this is right or wrong, we're trying to get opportunities where people don't have to leave their side of town.
Yeah.
that you can stay, you know, like on the south side of town, you look at the development that's come out, the Barfield area, the medical facilities that have come out, you know, the west side of town, the new hospitals that are being built, you know, so you're able to sort of stay in your node and not necessarily have to go all the way across town all the time.
So that's more mixed use, trying to provide different services around different parts of town.
And look, man, the county is in a much different situation. You know, we've been able to not have to raise taxes because we've been able to generate other income through sales tax. I mean, our last number this year, I think 56% of our revenue is from sales tax, 44%, 40%. There's some other government funds that are through property tax. So we've been able to do that. The county doesn't really have that ability because they just don't have the sales tax revenue that the cities do.
Right. So you're approaching the end of your current term as mayor, and I think you're going to be running again next year, I would assume.
Lord willing.
What do you see on the horizon for Murfreesboro as your long-term vision?
We've got a bunch of transportation projects that we want to be able to get through. And that also is lobbying with our state leaders. We've got a great delegation. I mean, I'm not just saying this because I'm where I'm sitting and looking at the pictures on the wall. I mean, you know, I can pick up the phone and call Tim and Brian, Shane, Dawn, Robert, Charlie, Mike. I mean, I can call all of them and they will pick up the phone. And so that's part of it, is just working with those individuals. And a lot of our roads in our city are all state roads. So I think that's a big deal. The landfill continues to be a big issue that we're working through. You know, just about a week ago, we rejected the settlement that BFI and Republic had sent to us. And I think Mayor Carr, we've worked really well with Mayor Carr. I think if you talk with I'm not giving any endorsement to any candidate, but, you know, Joe's been good to work with all of our municipalities. And I think we do stand firm on the landfill issue to say, hey, this is a significant issue for our community, especially for our natural resources and our water, which is a big issue.
No doubt.
So that's going to be something in this next term. It's going to be huge. We're getting the West Park on the west side of town up and running. I really think that we've not built new baseball and softball fields since the mid-90s. So we've got to build some new baseball fields and softball fields for the community.
Keeping folks on that, be able to have conveniences on their
Yeah, I mean, we built ball fields. Our last ball fields we built were, not counting the Miracle Field, that was an unreal project we did. But, I mean, Barfield was the last parks we built. I think that was 94 or 95. So we need new ball fields. We just have tried to prioritize between wants and needs. So that's something that we've got to finish up. And then, you know, I think ultimately I really would like to find a way to strengthen our partnership with MTSU. Our partnership with MTSU has not been what it is needed to be over the years, but I think a lot of that has to do with just different perspectives of where things have been. So I hope that we can work on that. So there's a lot of things to work on.
Yeah, MTSU seems like a real competitive advantage for Murfreesboro from an economic development standpoint. I mean, just a host of different issues.
Yes.
So
yeah, it does. I mean, but I think the economic development point is it's a very valid point. But I think we get too often we look at things in dollars and cents.
Yeah.
And I really think we have to look at MTSU now on value added back to our community, and whether that's teachers or nurses. Like the aviation program, great program, but you know that was a great example of like the city just couldn't handle. I mean, you go out, you're at the airport quite a bit. I mean, we just couldn't handle more. So I think trying to find those win-win situations where we recognize what's a benefit to the community, I hope will be something that we'll continually work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shane, I know community involvement and getting the community involved in what you're doing and understanding what's going on is really important to you. If somebody wants to get more information, how can they tell us? You have social media sites. What are the best ways for people to get information about what's going on?
One of the things I hope that people will really look at, our City TV. It's an national award-winning program that you can get on our YouTube page, our Facebook page, X. We're on all the social media platforms, Instagram. But we've been doing these little 10 and 15-minute segments. Like we just got finished with one that came out this week to talk about, it's called All Things Traffic. and we're talking about road projects inside the city of Murfreesboro that we're doing, that the state's doing, just to update everyone on, what happens, Ross, and this is the part that stinks sometimes. We get all of our information off of social media, and it depends which site that you're looking at, and half of it's not correct.
Yeah.
I use the term fake news. I mean, I hate to, but like, I saw an article was ran the other day about the city Cherry Lane, which is one of the larger projects that has come across. I compare it to Veterans Parkway and Rutherford Boulevard, where you're trying to build those roads around the city where people can get in and out. And it was an article on how we took a home away from a widower. And I'm like, that happened 2 years ago. And that was a sort of an agreed deal. I mean, everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. And so I think us trying to get our story out to explain to people that,
you're not out taking widowers.
No. And so I think that's the difference between, like, especially with the city, the local side, we don't ask you, or if you're a Democrat, if we pick your trash up. We have 60,000 cans a week that we're picking up. We need to provide the best service we can for the least amount of money that we can.
Absolutely.
To meet the expectations. And so we've tried to do that. And I think, City TV, getting our word out, you need to go look at those. Also, we've got 250 people who serve on boards and commissions. And, people ask me as mayor, what, the people think the mayor has all this power. The best thing that we have is appointing people to boards and commissions that are smart and really see what's happening in the city. So you can go to the murfreesborotn.gov and you can see board and commission positions that are open. There's a lot of those that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to always advocate. And then lastly, S. McFarland at murfreesborotn.gov. I pride myself on every single person who emails me gets a response back. Like, I don't have someone who manages my email account, my social media account. That's me. I don't have someone who manages my calendar. That's me. Probably to my detriment sometimes. So
I'm always amazed to see your social media, how you may have 600 comments in a feed and you're replying to them.
I try.
I think that's how they get that large, because you're having that dialogue back and forth in any platform that you can. So
I try to do that. But I mean, I think that's the part where if you've got questions, reach out. And I still think that even though we're a huge city, I mean, we're the 5th largest city in the state of Tennessee. I believe that's right. 5th or 6th, that, you still have elected officials that you can engage in. And, I guarantee you, all due respect to Nashville, but if you email the mayor in Nashville, you're not getting a response back from the mayor. I mean,
no doubt.
So I do think that's something that's beneficial. So I always tell people just to reach out.
Well, Shane, thanks for joining us today. I know a lot of people appreciate all your service over the years, and you're willing to step up and serve. I know as a family man and a business owner, being the mayor of Murfreesboro is not your primary role and responsibility, and you do that as really almost a volunteer. It is a paid position, but it's not. You're not doing it for the money, I know. And so thank you for your service over the years. You can tell you have a servant's heart ever since you've been in college and probably before then. And I know it's made a tremendous difference in our city and in our family. So thank you for what you're doing. If thanks for joining us today. If you like this interview, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us a comment down below so that you can see more of our content as we'll continue to have these interviews with some of our other mayors. Thank you.